All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2023. We haven't seen you guys since November or December was our last quarterly webinar. So welcome to our first one this year. It is Tuesday, February 21st. We're so excited to see all of you here with us today. So this is your first webinar in 2023 from Team Stetzel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Trisha Stetzel, co-owner of Results Extreme Business Solutions, and my partner in crime, Mr. Dennis Stetzel. We should do the thing. Say hi, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
All right. So for those of you who know us or are familiar with DISC, you would totally get a kick out of that. If you didn't, then maybe you should ask us about a DISC assessment because, well, we could inform you as to that little insider joke. Today, we're going to be talking about first-class customer care. And not only does Dennis have an amazing set of content to share with you today, but also some real stories, some stories that have happened to us over the last few weeks. Even at New Year's Eve, right? So we can't forget to tell that story. So Dennis, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to kick us off, and I will watch in the background for anybody who has questions, comments, conjectures. Please feel free to do that. I will be monitoring the screen, and Dennis, it's all yours.
All right, so just a quick tech check. You good with slideshow? Is that looking good?
Yes, it is. Go for it, sir.
Very good. All right, so you met us. We're going to talk today a little bit about first-class customer care, and there's a lot of different books, a lot of different courses, a lot of different theories and things on Google that you can find on first-class customer care. I really like this this presentation and this view of it because I think it really drives it home, and it's real simple. Ultimately, and I like cars. Anybody who knows me knows that I like cars. I'm on the board for Keels and Wheels, which is an amazing organization that their event is coming up. So if you have questions about that, let me know. But I think at last count, well, what we just got another one added to the stable. So engines and cars and gasoline and wheels are all in my wheelhouse. So if you say that sales are the engine that drives your business, then customer sat is the fuel. So your ability to satisfy your customers really is that octane level of your success. You can have an amazing sales engine. You could pay buku dollars for a sales engine, but if you put low octane gas in it, or you put the wrong gas in it, it's just not going to run. And so the point here is that, to the extent that you can satisfy your customers, that really determines how well that engine runs. Your customers have to be happy. If you're pumping poor customer service or customer care into a great sales engine, it's going to run poorly. It all starts as well with expectations. If you set the expectation properly, you're bound to hit your customer, your customer care, your customer satisfaction score. Expectations, the worst enemy of customer satisfaction, the worst enemy of any real relationship are unfulfilled expectations. That could be an unhappy partner. It could be an employee who becomes disgruntled, or in this case, it could be, an angry customer. That displeasure is rooted in failing to meet an expectation, but even more importantly, failing to recognize some expectation. I think we can all agree that we know when we fail to meet an expectation, when somebody verbalizes that or somebody talks through it. But then there are times when a client disengages, or an employee disengages, or a relationship disengages. And a lot of times the ending of that relationship, or that friction where you find yourself scratching your head saying, what the heck happened? It's that failure to recognize that there was an expectation that was set. Right? And a lot of times it's not going to be explicit. It's not going to be, obvious. Sometimes your clients, your customers, your employees, they're not going to tell you their expectations. You have to go. You, as the owner, the leader, the entrepreneur, you have to go find that. And the analogy that I'll use, keeping with the theme of cars, is buying a sports car. So if you're in the market for a sports car and you're looking to satisfy the needs, the desires, the wants of a buyer like me, you're going to ask me, so what do you want? And I'm going to tell you, I want something used. Doesn't make any sense to buy new. Once you buy new, it depreciates the minute you take it off the lot. There's all the maintenance. There's just all those things associated with a new car that I'm not necessarily interested. So I want something that's used. I want a 2-seater. Why bother with a 4-seater? A 2-seater is that's the apex of sports cars. Needs to be red. Needs to have custom wheels. Who wants to look at a non-red, non-custom sports car? Got to be custom. Can't be off the lot. Has to be high performance. Has to be race ready. Got to be able to take it to the track and run it around the track or run it down the drag strip if that's what you like to do. And it has to start with an F. That's my final requirement. That this sports car that's used, 2-seater, high performance, has custom wheels and is red. Really, really need you to have it start with an F. There it is.
That's what I was hoping for.
But what
Ferrari.
if I got the Fiero?
Oh.
Now, maybe if I'm an 80s collector, that Fiero may actually be exactly what I was expecting. And you deliver the Ferrari. I mean, people look at this chart and they say, well, of course it would be the Ferrari. Well, maybe not. Maybe the Ferrari is way out of my price range. It's something that I could never afford. And now I'm embarrassed. Now I'm kind of scratching my head as to how to tell you I can't afford a Ferrari. And now I no longer want to do business with you because your expectations of me are much higher than I can afford. So it's not that either one of these pictures is right or wrong. It's about the expectations that I set or that you go figure out on your own in order to achieve that first-class customer care. So let's talk for a minute about being elite in the realm of customer care and customer service. So the first is the E. The E in the elite is being engaged, asking questions, building relationships, and checking in. You wouldn't know whether I was a Ferrari enthusiast or a Fiero enthusiast unless you asked questions and built a relationship and understood, why am I buying the car? Being engaged with me and checking in, listening, right? Doing your research, doing your homework. We live in an era of social media, whether we like it or not. There's a lot of information about us, our affiliations, our programs, what we're interested in. They're all over the place. If you did a quick search on me, you might find photos, you might find keels and wheels listed, you might find pictures and references to my existing collection, right? That might give you some insight. So yes, send surveys, schedule one-on-ones, but also in the case of the cars, do a little homework, do a little research, be proactive about it. Understand my passion, understand my driving forces, understand why I might be in the market. In other purchases or other service agreements, understand why somebody wants the services that you provide and be proactive about proposing to them how your solution or how your product or service can drive or support their passion or drive and enhance and complement their driving forces. Show some inspiration. Be creative, be intentional, and think. We don't always have to be sales oriented. Customer satisfaction is not transactional. Customer satisfaction is not, point of service or point of sale. Being a partner, being somebody who is relied upon, finding a way to say yes. You may only be interested in selling a car, but if someone comes and asks you, well, do you have any recommendations on the best tires for off-road use? If your answer is, well, I don't deal in tires, I deal in cars. When you're ready to buy a car, come talk to me. I can almost guarantee you they're not going to come back. But if you find a way to say yes and say, well, actually, that's not my area of expertise, but I know a guy, or I know a gal, or I know a person who owns a tire dealership, and he, she, they would be ultimately the best. They're who I trust. And so, let me do this. Let me make a quick phone call and put you in contact with that person who knows tires. Or let me put you in contact with that person who does amazing vehicle maintenance. That's finding a way to say yes, regardless of it's that transactional, whether or not you're going to get a sale from it. Thinking and being intentional, being creative is one step toward becoming elite and that champion. And then be exceptional. Have a great attitude. As a as a customer care, customer service provider, you got to go in with a positive attitude. You got to go in with the right attitude, and your intentions need to be noble. People don't like to feel as though they're being sold. People don't like to feel as though the relationship with you is based on a pending transaction, right? Go in with noble intentions and understand that the seed that you plant today may be the oak tree that grows in the future. And so when we're talking about being elite, right, we're talking about transforming from a transactional vendor to a strategic partner or a trusted partner, or someone that's not just, you don't just go to when you need a specific widget or a specific thing, right? It's someone that you might engage even in something that's way off the beaten path from our sales channel or from that sales engine, because they trust you, because you're engaged, because you listen, because you approach everything with an inspiration. You understand the why and the driving forces. You've got a passion about what you do. You're intentional and creative, and you always seem to find a way to say yes. You have a great attitude, and your intentions go beyond the transaction, and they're noble. Now, wouldn't that be if any one of your customers, any one of your clients were to describe you in that way? Imagine what kind of octane boost that would make to your sales engine. Think about that. Pretty cool, huh?
And can I add something?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, I know you want me to add negative Nelly stuff here. You and I both know that when I get poor customer service, I don't go back. Like, I hold a grudge. So I would ask all of you who are on today, have you ever found yourself in that situation where you had poor customer service, you were on the receiving end of it, and you said, you know what? I don't want to go back because there are 1,000 other places that I could go and get better service. Or there may only be one other place that I can go and get better service, but that's where I'm going to go. And it really is about, Dennis, we were talking about building that relationship. It's not transactional. I don't care what business you're in, you still have some kind of connection with people, and being that connector and helping people through things that may be outside of your realm. I get it. I do a lot of things that aren't my job, but I would never say that, right? It really is about providing that elite customer service. And I love how you laid it out here. It's really simple.
And using your example of, boycotting or holding a grudge, I think especially you, and I know other people who do, you might go out of your way. It could be at the expense. You may be the most convenient, inexpensive provider, but I think your words were, I will push my car before I get gas there.
Yep.
And it had nothing to do with gasoline. Like the transaction had nothing to do with gas. It had something to do with a purchase inside that you would never have to even go inside. But because of that negative interaction, they lost your business for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let me take us back above the line.
Okay.
I'll share with you
So for those of you who are familiar with victor victim, we're going to take ourselves from the victim area and move us back to the top. Thank you, Dennis.
So put yourself in this situation. So it's New Year's Eve, and actually the balloon drop, the ball drop had already happened. It was late, and it was time to start kind of wrapping up, although I think we kept the staff there much later than we should have. But they were very gracious in allowing us to inconvenience them. But as things were wrapping up, one of the staff at the place that we were at, they came to me and they said, "Excuse me, Mr. Stetzel, is this your lens?" Now, I wasn't wearing my glasses.
Thank goodness.
They showed me this lens and said, "Is this your lens?" And I was like, "Of course not. That can't be my lens." But then I checked my pocket, and you know what? My lens was missing. I was missing a lens. And think about that. What did it take? That there were a lot of people in the club. They were everywhere. There was chaos and disorder and lots of people celebrating New Year's Eve. There were people in and out of every room, every lounge, eating, drinking, having a good time, having conversations. And somehow that group, that team, they went and they did the homework and said, okay, we found a lens. Now, how easy would it have been to take that lens and be like, well, time to clean up and toss it? I never even thought about it. But they looked around, they did the research, they did the homework, they conspired, I guess, or talked to each other, say, who's wearing glasses? Who Who doesn't have their glasses on? Well, Mr. Stetzel doesn't have his glasses on. Let's go check with him. That's because they've built a relationship with me. They check in, right? They've done their homework. They understand, right? And they were intentional. And instead of just saying, well, it's 12:45 on New Year's Eve, I have bigger, better things to do. And should I take time out of my evening to go find the owner of this lens, or just toss it in the bin and think nothing of it? They found me. They found me, engaged me, and talked to me. And even though I wasn't wearing my glasses, and even though I was like, no, so are you sure? Where are your glasses? I pulled them out. And so that is a great example of being elite. And I will continue to go back, and I will continue to be the champion of that club. I'll be the champion of that group. They did an amazing job. And I think it has everything to do with being engaged, listening, being inspired and passionate about their job, thinking through the problems, being intentional, creative, and just ultimately being exceptional. And, you know, in the face of 12:45 on New Year's Eve, having a great attitude and having noble intentions. And there's other examples of it. Are you going to bring us down below the line again? I see your hand.
No, I have a good story.
Oh, okay.
I have a good story. I want to talk about the tiny house. So we've been in this process since last spring, and we purchased a tiny house in Colorado, and it was delivered about a month ago. We had all kinds of crazy stuff happening. So when Dennis said, look us up on social media, you might see some funny stories about the tiny house, but it wasn't about the delivery. It was about the phone call that I received after the delivery to ask me if I would be available to have one of the doors replaced. I had no idea that one of the doors even had a crack in it. I thought that was amazing. So not only did they order a new door, they shipped it here. They had Ace Handy Services lined up to actually replace the doors, which I think is really cool. But there's something even cooler. When I set foot into the house for the very first time, they had a sign burned in with the name of my house. The salesperson remembered that I had a name for my house, and they actually created a sign and put it inside of my tiny house. So talk about engaged and listening, being inspired, thinking, and being exceptional and providing exceptional service. They were elite. And I'm so just excited that someone would take that kind of care in delivering my tiny house, which is my office, to me. And I think that's really special.
That's a great example. Very good. Okay. So should we move on?
Whenever you're ready. So let's see. I think in my experience, here's a comment in the Q&A area. In my experience, most poor customer service has come from an employee, not the owner. So how do you get others to buy into elite customer service who work for you and take ownership in delivering better service? That's a great question.
They need to understand, I think first and foremost, they need to understand why they're there. What is their contribution? Take, I think the best example I could think of off the top of my head is at Washington Mutual. It's a bank. They do home loans. They do financial transactions. And as you traverse from the CEO all the way down into the keyboard level, people doing things, there's someone who they employ. There's someone at Washington Mutual employs to change tapes. I'm dating myself a little bit because I don't think anybody changes tapes anymore, but it has all the customer data, all the transaction data, all the backups from all the systems. They go to tape so they can be retrieved later. Now that's, you could argue someone who does that role, they don't really look like, why do they do that? Why is that important? I think it's in order for them to be passionate, in order for them to build relationships and check in and be creative and find a way to say yes, find creative solutions to some of the tougher problems, is to understand and make sure they understand what that role is and why it's important. It's not just changing tapes. The importance of that role is there's a customer there's a transaction on that tape somewhere. And the difference between you doing your job well and maybe someone not getting a loan or not getting admitted to a university or, not being able to buy a home or make that purchase or pass an audit that could rely on you. We make transactions every single day. 3-4 years from now, when you go to retrieve that transaction, if that person who was supposed to change that tape did it poorly or did it wrong, that has an impact on a person. So I think every industry is a little bit different, but every role, especially if it's a paid role, if you're paying someone in your business as an employee, they sure as heck better be doing something that's really important. And so I think the key to bringing them in and having them be engaged and passionate and finding a way to say yes is to make it very, very clear why they're important and what their role contributes to the mission, the purpose, the vision that your company has. And ultimately, sometimes some people just want to be employed from 8 to 5, and maybe they're not deeply interested in the mission, the vision, the purpose. Then maybe you don't put them in a key role, but regardless of whether they're key or not, make sure they understand what the importance is, and that they're, at least on the surface level, bought in. But for those passionate employees, put them in those more progressively responsible roles. They'll find a way to say yes. They'll find a way to provide elite customer care. So I think it starts with what's the importance of that role, no matter where they are in the org.
Yeah, and I think the culture that we bring as owners and leaders to any business is important, and empowering the people that are running the business with us, all the way down to the guy who's pushing the broom, right? He has value to offer to the client that we're supporting. And by the way, my example of the tiny house, it wasn't the owner that had that sign put together. It wasn't even somebody that I had interfaced with very much. She helped me look at tiny houses when I was in Colorado last spring, and I hadn't talked to her since then. It was the whole team coming together. She had remembered that I had a name for it and had passed it along to the rest of the team. And it was the team that actually did that. But that team has a culture of family, and creating that space and that culture inside of that business. I think they felt empowered to go and do something like that. And we're all at different levels of that. But like Dennis said, we need to make sure that people know what their value is, what is important about the job that they're doing or the position that they hold. And they are serving people in some fashion. And once we have that connection, I think is where we start to create that positive culture with people feeling empowered and carrying that forward to the customers. Great question. All right. So Mr. Stetzel, we've got 7 minutes to wrap this up. If you're ready to move on, we don't have anything else in the chat window.
Okay.
So thank you guys, all of you, for joining us today. We always try and make this short and sweet so we can get you in and get you out. I think I'm almost famous for start on time, end on time. Am I famous? No, I just made that up. But I do want to get you guys back to what you were doing. I hope that you found some value in the message that we brought to you today, or that Dennis brought to you today, about first-class customer care and using Elite to remember those things that are going to be important to giving your clients not just what they need or want, but what they deserve, right, from you. So what's next? If you guys would like to discover your business growth score, if you haven't done that already, I know some of you are repeaters and we're glad that you came back, but some of you are brand new. Welcome to Team Stetzel. And we'd love to give you the opportunity to do this business growth score card. You can scan the QR code. It'll take you straight to the link where you can do that. You'll get a really nice assessment on the back end of it, and it'll tell you where you are in 5 areas of your business and give you some tips and tricks on how to get better in each of those areas. And if you'd like a follow-up phone call, we can do that too. Dennis, anything else before we wrap up?
No, just thank you all for taking a few minutes out of your busy day to listen to us, and look forward to talking to many of you in the future.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon. And I am sure we'll see you someplace else. Until then, our next webinar will be in April, May. And so we'll see you then if we don't see you someplace else. You guys have a great day. Take care.